Oh, people. Yes, every time I stop that theme music, but it doesn't take for a couple seconds and then it starts to roll into the next one. And every time we come on here and we've got our camera shot here, the same things roll through my mind. The same things roll through my mind just about every time we go live or record anything or do anything here at the Voice of College Football. I don't think you want to know what those things are. Wake up! Sorry, that was for myself. Appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football for Wake Up College Football. And yes, so I don't know if this affects viewership or not. I really don't. I have no idea how and when the show gets scheduled because I'm not really used to, I'm not in the habit of scheduling this show. And of course, all the rest of our shows later in the day. And so I schedule them either the night before or during the day if they're later in the day. And the viewership, the audience, all of you have hours and hours and hours and hours to see that notification and see that it's scheduled. Because I know when I jump on YouTube, I will see that various shows, not of mine, but of other people that I either subscribe to, or I would hope it's that I subscribe to, because otherwise I don't want anybody else's shows to know or to give YouTube indication that I would be watching or would be interested. But I see that people's shows are scheduled at various times. With this one, I did that for a number of shows leading up to it, but I realized that this morning I didn't schedule the show. I realized that on Monday morning I did not schedule the show, and then I scheduled it. But then I thought, I don't know if maybe that jumping on and having that notification go out and having it scheduled at the last minute maybe alerts people in the moment and is maybe more effective, because if it's scheduled like 12 hours in advance, then it just sits there, people forget about it. If you're like me, I was talking to one of my friends or my son yesterday. Something happened a couple of days earlier, and it was something I need to jump on concerning my business. Actually, it is something that none of you are aware of, but is vitally important. It's going to take a whole lot of time. It's already taken hundreds and hundreds of hours. And I had had a meeting with somebody a few days ago, and I thought, my goodness, I haven't thought about that since that meeting. And man, that seems like it was Friday. Today's Monday. Okay, I'm okay. I haven't looked at this, but I still have to get it in my mind, because it's the type thing that there are these resources available all the time, and I got to jump on this and got to get going and get participating in this. But man, just I don't know if your world works like this in regards to business in particular, where things that happened, sometimes I'll do so many records and so many live streams that I have done this a few times. It doesn't happen very often. I'll record something at 11 o'clock in the morning, and if I can't get to it until 7, 8 o'clock at night, it's 9 records ago, and I even forgot that I did it, and it'll sit there for a day, and then I'll come across it and be like, oh, I totally forgot I did that. Let's edit this and get it out there. Having all said that, here we are. Appreciate you all stopping by at the Voice of College Football. And yes, we want to make this show something that you guys enjoy and look forward to every day. And so at the outset of this, of course, we're 14 shows deep. It was about, okay, let's talk college football. Let's go through the headlines, because we want to roll this out as a morning show, as like this is the beginning of your day, even if it's not. 8 o'clock may be way late for a lot of you, and your day's half over if you're in the Eastern time zone, but we can't be just fixated on the Eastern time zone. As I came to find out when I moved to Mississippi when I was 26, Central time zone. Yes, these people that do exist. And then the Mountain time zone, I spent a lot of time out there at different points of my life. And then the West Coast, of course, 5 in the morning. So we're truly a morning show for those people on the West Coast. If they are up and at 'em and even thinking clearly at 5 o'clock in the morning. But hey, I've got a best buddy who gets up at 4:30 in the morning. Actually, my two best friends, I think, are right in that range of 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So let's see, today, alarm at 7:06, dozed, 7:31. That's the latest I've gotten out of bed. So I can't let that happen again. So here we are. But boom, morning headlines, what's for breakfast, anything else you guys would like to add to it? Actually, it being Tuesday, I brought this up last Tuesday. And this has slipped my mind since last Tuesday, but just because I said Tuesday, it clicked back in, 2 for Tuesday. What's that mean? I don't know. And it doesn't have to be 2 for Tuesday, but one of my best friends said to me a couple weeks ago, he said, you need some catchy little segments to add. Well, I thought I already had those. I got the morning headlines. I do the newspaper thing every time I say that. I think it's obligatory. It's in the contract. Morning headlines. And then we've got the Mark What's for Breakfast segment. And then the rest of the time, I just ramble about what's going on in my life, or at least what I want to share. That's pretty much what we do here, right? I think the closer we get to the season, the more it's going to be a football show. And I truly don't know if you guys want to hear more about fluff, life, or you want to hear more about football. I kind of let you guys drive the conversation, or the day's events. If there's actual news out there to talk about, we will run through the college football. So we are going to steamroll through the summer into the college football season. And my goals would be to have like 500 people watching every day. I know that sounds like nothing to many big YouTubers out there, having 500 people watch the actual live show and then like 10,000 views on these shows to keep us going. We'll see how that goes in the next through the football season, but those would be the goals. But we got to crawl before we walk, before we run. I guess that's running. Maybe that's jogging. 500 live viewers. We've got about 20 people on here right now. We only have to increase that by about 40 times. Is that the math? So we can do that. So yeah, those would be where we would like to be going into the football season. All right. I'm going to check the chat as I typically do. Would love to see who's here and what you guys are talking about. And then we hit the headlines. And I did take a quick peek at the headlines. So this would be, you get the morning paper, you jump in the shower, then you come back and look at the headlines. And so I did see one note there that is a sad note in the world of college athletics today. In the chat, we so much appreciate Franklin Fanatic being a mainstay here on the Big Show each morning. Big Show, that started with Ed Sullivan, right? The Big Show, the Big Shoe. Yeah. Who knows who Ed Sullivan is? I talk a lot of pop culture with a good friend of mine, Steve, and I think he tends to believe that people today have no idea what was going on 20 years ago, let alone 70 years ago. 70 years ago would be 1954. That might be a little bit long. Sullivan, 50s, 60s into the 70s. But I tend to think the opposite. I think that these old artists, and more so music, I think that the younger generation is more into old music, certainly, than old TV shows. I don't think young people are watching old TV shows. But as I search YouTube, as I look around, as I get fed stuff, and I watch a lot of reaction channels from these 20-somethings, I see them listening to music from the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, etc. But yes, the Big Show. Canes Dolphins 89. Good morning, Mark and everyone. Thank you so much for that. That's nice to see. It reminds me that we unleashed our program rankings series on Monday. we did with the Pac-12. Why would we do a program rankings of the Pac-12? The Pac-12's finished. Well, it's an all-time series. It's an all-time rankings. And of course, the Pac-12, this is almost the best time to do it. This is almost the appropriate time to do it with the Pac-12 because it's all sealed. It's all locked. It's done. It's finished. That is Pac-12 history. It's over. I think we've all shed our last tear, possibly. Maybe some Pac-12 fans will be back in remorse and regret and will be hurting come September again when there's no Pac-12 football. So we put a stamp on Pac-12 football with our all-time program rankings. Catch the series. Started on Monday, and I was reminded of that because I saw the comment there from our Miami friend, and we are going on to the ACC. So I hope to get that video accomplished today. These videos take quite some time because we don't spitball it like a lot of people do out there that just throw out all sorts of, there's rankings all over the place out there on the internet when it comes to college football, and most of them are invalid and people just throwing stuff out that way. So we've got like 52 different metrics we're looking at. And so we did the Pac-12. We're moving on to the ACC. So Miami, Kings Dolphins 89. You will be interested in the ACC and the look at Miami's all-time ranking in the ACC. And then not just in their stay in the ACC. We're not just looking at Miami's stay in the ACC. We're looking at program history for all these teams in the ACC. So it's a bit difficult to navigate from that standpoint because Miami's not had such a great time in the ACC, but their ranking against ACC programs in their entirety, of course, stacks up quite well. All right, so program rankings continue, and we're going to do a lot of live streams where we get your feedback directly and take your calls and comments. Jared is here. Good morning to Jared. We've got Tim. Pony Up 214. First time I have come across Pony Up 214. Good to have you here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Would love to know who you root for and how long you've been watching. Let's eat. Pony Up's been here. I get this from time to time. Some people will contact me and they've watched for 2 months or 2 years or 5 years, and I've never heard from them. So it's good to hear from Pony Up 214. Let's eat. Well, absolutely, let's eat. Let me answer a text here, or it's actually a phone call coming in from somebody that I would expect to not be calling me at this point. So I want to make sure that everything's fine. Okay. We will see. Hopefully that's just somebody wanting to chat. Okay. That didn't do what I asked it to do, nor did that. There we go. Good morning to D-Rock Irish. Appreciate you being here. We've got Penn State, Notre Dame, Miami, Ohio State in the building. Jim's here as well. Tornado headlines. Yeah, I got to say, well, first of all, we don't delve into the news. But yes, to note something there, certainly thoughts and prayers go out to everybody impacted by these tornadoes. And I got to say that my news consumption it goes back and forth. It's all over the place. And really, these news channels have become nothing but political machines. Remember when you used to turn on CNN 25 years ago and they actually reported on news events? Like if there was this smoldering fire at this large company in Baltimore, they would be reporting on that, and they would go to the local affiliate and report on that. They're nothing but a news cycle of political talk. So you don't get anything there. And not that I'm necessarily that interested or involved in any way, and certainly understand my heart when I say this, not necessarily interested in hearing what's going on in other parts of the country to a certain extent, except for these situations where I'd like to know, to acknowledge, and then also to, more importantly, pray for these people. So I didn't know anything about these tornadoes until we had tornado issues in Nebraska and those adjoining states. That was the day before, must have been the Friday before the Nebraska spring game, which would have been a week and a half ago, something in that range. So I became aware of them when I heard Matt Rule's news conference after the spring game. Didn't know that there was devastation in that part of the country the day before. And then Corey Brada made note of it during our Iowa show. And so it looks like we've had another round of tornado devastation. Hopefully not, but certainly let me know where that would be. Keith here, repping Michigan. Good to see you. Sunny, good to see Sunny. Good morning, everyone. Mark, how you liking Florida? Settled in? Happy with the move so far? Extremely happy with the move. Not settled in. Been working on all this stuff. I can tell my friends when I talk to my friends, especially my close friends that are down here, about furniture and about that sort of thing. My daughter's showing up in less than 3 weeks now, and so now it becomes urgent that I have things for us to sit on. But before that, like, oh my goodness, it's just like I've looked at furniture. I hate looking at furniture. I've looked at it in person. It's not like I've not invested time in looking at furniture online, and I've probably spent 5, 6 hours. I don't even want to guesstimate, more than 5 or 6 hours. And so now maybe this is a good thing. I'll just buy stuff. I will just, like last night, I was frustrated looking at stuff, and I'll just buy stuff now because I got to fill up some areas here. But yes, this is what is the difference, at least in my experience, between being married or at least having a significant other that you believe you were going to be married. So I've had both of those situations. And then being single as a man is, especially having like 100-hour-a-week business, is that the house is a huge priority with someone. Without someone, the house is like just space. I would like it to be nice, would like it to be settled in, but it's always like number 48 on the to-do list. So it just doesn't get done. Although, again, I have invested quite some time, so it's not like I've ignored it. But yes, I really enjoy my new place. I consider this to be an odd color scheme, though, to select furniture. So, yeah. But all is good. I'm glad I moved. Moose Hugh, I hope I got that right. 420, good to see you. And others, can't get to everyone here in the chat, but thank you. D-Rock Irish, was Ed Sullivan a Buckeye fan? Pony Ups 43. Yeah, Jim knows what I'm talking about there. Jim goes with, I think Elvis was on the Ed Sullivan show and the camera would not show his shaky moves. That's correct. That is correct. Ferris, good to see Ferris here. Ferris joins us tonight on the Michigan show, which I will be hosting, and got to remind myself over and over that I will be responsible for the Michigan show tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. John D'Adamo on the road. So I will be there with TJ and Ferris breaking down Michigan football. Keith says Pro Football Focus reports that Michigan is offensive line U leads the NFL in rostered offensive linemen. All right. Well, we could certainly have a debate about that. I am not equipped with the numbers or the information or the context, most importantly, to have that debate. But I know our buddy Brian Driscoll there at Irish Breakdown came out with a number a few weeks ago, and then I asked him about it when we had him on last week. If you've not seen the video posted in the conversation with Brian, please check it out. It's right here on the main channel. Good conversation with Brian Driscoll. Irish Breakdown. Guy knows his stuff through and through, especially pertaining to Notre Dame. That Notre Dame, and these numbers, again, it's just one list. It's just one stat that could be impacted in this case by just a few people. But in the Notre Dame category, you've got 14 all-pro selections by Notre Dame offensive linemen currently in the NFL. And the next best school, I believe it's a tie between Ohio State and Iowa, is at 3. So Brian claims Notre Dame is O-line U. Keith claims Michigan. It looks like the current quality in the NFL certainly sides with Notre Dame. The quantity on the Michigan side, now that they've had 2 or 3 strong draft classes. Nobody is touching Alabama and Wisconsin over the last 15 to 20 years. Maybe Notre Dame is now that they've had a really strong run under Brian Kelly. So put Notre Dame in that class for the last 15 or 20 years. Depends what you consider O-line U. What is your historical perspective on that? Is that just like right now? Or is that the last 10 or 15 years? Like Iowa, we could have a debate over tight end U all time. We've got Stanford, we've got Notre Dame, we've got Miami, we've got Iowa. Certainly serve up any other school that you would for tight end U, but those are the 4 that come to mind for me. But in the last 10 or 15 years, Iowa has that thing clamped down. We've got Premier Youth Theater. Go Noles, state champs in the house. That is cool to see. So another possible new viewer. So thank you for that, Premier Youth. Repping Florida State. Our Florida State shows Wednesday at 6. Bobby in, Michigan fan. Bobby, good to see you. Ferris coming back with this. Mark, I have a ton of furniture, but I am in Michigan moving to California. Yes, it's not necessarily that I'm having an issue like receiving furniture or I need a collection to purchase furniture or anything like that. It's just the actual, okay, what's going to, like I was looking at sectionals late last night. It's like 2 a.m. I'm looking at sectionals, looking at couches. I think I settled on a couch instead of a sectional because I would like to have a sectional, but the room that I'm looking at, it's too small. The sectional would fit in there, but I don't like cramped rooms. I don't like crowded rooms. I don't like small pathways because the TV's got to be on one side. If the TV could be on the other wall, that would correct everything because I've got an extra 45 inches on the other wall. But on the side where the couch has to go, I've got an opening on one side of the room that has to be left somewhat clear for you to walk into the room. And then on the other side, got a staircase. So if things were flipped with the TV, there we go. Bobby, I once thought I wanted to move to California because, my goodness, is there any place in the country that is more beautiful and have better weather than California. So at one point, I thought, yeah, I'd love to move to California. And I was dating somebody at the time who loved California, lived in California and all that. So I thought maybe that was my destination someday, to be in California. But no, thank you. No, thank you anymore. That dream has died in the last 5 or 10 years. Look at this. Appreciate you. Sucky $5. Sucky $5. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for stopping by. And thank you so much because, hey, this is the first time here. So thank you so much for the contribution. Does anyone else think Notre Dame should be left out of the playoff unless they go 12-0 or 11-1, one of the weakest schedules I've seen so far? Well, I would say it this way, that first of all, we don't know how weak the schedule is. We can estimate how weak it is, but until they play the games this coming season, we're not going to know how weak it is. Let's look at the Notre Dame schedule, since we've got a Super Chat contribution and we've got a point here made about a 12-team playoff. We're going to have one from the group of 5. We've got 11 spots. We've got 4 champions. Therefore, we're looking at 7 spots that Notre Dame can fill. 7 at-large spots for Notre Dame. And the Notre Dame schedule, if you're a college football fan, you can probably guess like 7 of the games because they stay the same, that they go to every year. So let's look at the Notre Dame schedule, shall we? So Notre Dame, for years and years and years, all respect for Notre Dame's scheduling for years, because Notre Dame, just got an ad popped right in front of the screen. For years and years and years, Notre Dame scheduled as tough as anyone in the country because, of course, they had an independent schedule. And they went out and they scheduled Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue. That was the standard threesome from the Big Ten. And then they would have their games against Penn State and Miami and other schools. Of course, USC every year. Stanford is a staple for Notre Dame on its schedule, and they always play Navy. And they've got quite a few dates against Army and Air Force as well, but always Navy. But once Notre Dame made this contract with the ACC, which I have railed on for years, but that's another matter. That's a college football matter. It works for Notre Dame. It works for the ACC. Good for them. It shouldn't exist. Whatever. That's another topic. But Notre Dame's schedule has not been as strong since they signed this contract with the ACC and play 5 to 6 ACC teams, because the ACC has generally sucked, and therefore it's weighted down Notre Dame's schedule. Certainly it has thrown them, well, for what was for 6-7 years, Clemson on an occasional basis. About when you're playing 5 or 6 out of 14 teams, then you're obviously playing them a little less than every other year. So they played Clemson in, let's say, 2015, and then they played them in 2020. They played them the last 2 seasons as well in 21, or I'm sorry, they played them in 22 and 23. So that's the obvious difficult matchup. They were playing some great Clemson teams those couple times, and then really good, but not as great Clemson teams the last few years. Then the other games, who's been good in the ACC? Well, obviously Florida State has jumped up, and Notre Dame has had to deal with them since they've been good once. They played them 2 years ago, but Florida State was lousy from basically 2017 until 2 years ago. And Miami's not been very good. And who has been any good? Louisville's okay. Duke has been okay at times. Of course, they gave Notre Dame a great game last year. So this ACC contract has watered down Notre Dame's schedule significantly, playing the likes of Duke and Virginia Tech, and all those other schools that they play on a regular basis now. So we'll give it a look here, and then we'll address your comment there, sucky $5. Let's bring this to, so we've got the first game of the season against Texas A&M. Well, that's a pretty tough opponent to start with. How good is Texas A&M? Well, we got a new head coach. We got a new program there from that standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, but they're loaded with talent. They definitely have one of the 15 most talented rosters in college football. Northern Illinois, is that a difficult game? Or Miami of Ohio? No, but everybody else plays those kind of games. So everybody else in the country is playing at least two of those kind of games as well. Just about everyone, almost everyone is playing two equivalent to MAC schools. And Miami of Ohio was a pretty good team last year. Okay, so it's more about what else we've got. From the ACC, we've got Louisville, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Virginia, and that's it. They only play 4 ACC teams, if I got that right. Virginia, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Louisville. Okay, so only 4 ACC teams this year for Notre Dame. It's typically been 5. It was 6 one year. Florida State, Louisville, Virginia, Georgia Tech. Yes, that's nothing mind-boggling, nothing too amazing to deal with. We expect Florida State to be a 9 or 10 win football team. They, of course, were 12-0 in the regular season last year. We've got Louisville, who advanced to the ACC championship game, that seems to be losing half its team. I don't know if it's losing important players. A few. Louisville should be a pretty good team. There you see the number 21 ranking. I don't know what that's based on, but it's based on nothing, basically, at this point. So Louisville is probably going to be a top 25 to 40 team in the country. And now Georgia Tech and Virginia. Georgia Tech, not as good as their 7-6 record would prove last year. And then we've got Virginia, who's horrible. Okay, so that's out of the ACC. Navy is another group of 5, and Army's another group of 5. So, sucky, you make a great point here. This is not the typical Notre Dame schedule. 2 lightweights in the ACC, Navy, Army on top of Miami of Ohio and Northern Illinois. So they're playing 4 group of 5s. They usually play many seasons 1. And for a long time, at times, nobody out of the group of 5. So I would agree with you that this is a pretty light schedule. USC is probably going to be good, but not great. USC is probably an 8-4 football team, and Stanford's awful. So sucky makes a good point about Notre Dame here. Yeah, to look at them as a 10-2 football team making the playoffs against other teams, it's all going to depend on USC's going to have to be really good. Florida State's going to have to be really good. Wow, those are pretty much the 2 teams. Did I miss somebody? Texas A&M maybe, but most likely USC and Florida State are the 2 best teams they're playing. And they're probably top 15 teams. And then you'd put Texas A&M and Louisville in a bucket of decent teams. and then it falls off the map. I think this is a great point by Sucky right there. Joey stopping by. Good to see Joey. Good morning, Voice of College Football fans. Hope you hit the like button. Absolutely. Please hit the like button so it doesn't do anything in regards to providing any viewers or anything like that. So it's like, who cares if we hit the like button? What does that do? Does that stroke somebody's ego? No, it's not about if you like a video or a live stream. It's about that YouTube says, okay, these people enjoy it. So even if it only 1,000 people watch this video, tons of people liked this video. Therefore, other people will probably like this video. So we're going to push it out to more people. So that's what that's all about. Jared, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. Jared encouraging others. Okay. D-Rock Irish. While we've got the Notre Dame schedule up, touting Notre Dame as tight end U as well. What is this as well business? So my thought is there's one quarterback U, there's one running back U, there's one offensive line U, there's one of all of them. We're going to have a group of them. Now, I'm not saying Notre Dame does not have a claim, does not have an argument. Historically, they do. Right now, they've produced some really good tight ends in the last 10 years. But, man, that Iowa tight end factory, nobody's keeping up with that. So I am not in myself in having multiple tight end, but that kind of defeats the purpose. That kind of defeats the purpose. It's like having multiple national champions. Well, there should be one national champion, but we found ourselves in a place for years and years and years and decades in this sport where there sometimes had to be multiple national champions, and even those writers and those voters got it wrong. And Joey says, sucky, $5. I think Notre Dame should be made to join the conference to make the playoffs. I agree. Now, in terms of loading up on their schedule, again, Notre Dame has certainly, regardless of your team out there, I guarantee that Notre Dame is scheduled tougher than over 90% of college football over the last 20 to 30 years. Not this particular schedule as it looks right now, but, I don't think we can be taking shots at Notre Dame's scheduling on a regular basis because they play a tougher schedule than pretty much anybody on a regular basis. But again, I explained why that's been watered down in recent years. Ferris says, consider a Samsung Frame TV. Looks like a picture most of the time, only one small wire. Love it. Okay. Not really in the market for TVs, although I did buy one a couple weeks ago, but that is going to be used for the Voice of College Football. Jared likes Notre Dame being independent. Thank you, Premier Youth Theater here in the state of Florida. Well, I got to say that, yes, there are pros and cons to living anywhere. I got one of the cons the other day when I switched my car insurance from Ohio to Florida. That I took a hit on. I took a serious hit. I took a $49 a month, same company, same exact coverage, all of it, 49 to 201. So, wow. Ferris has Notre Dame at 10-2. Let's say he's just drawing up a situation against a 10-3 Michigan team. Yeah, so I don't really see Michigan going 10-3 for this reason, that if they're 10-3, that means, I guess, they lost a conference championship game. I don't know if they can get into a conference championship game at 10-2. Well, I guess they lose to Texas and they lose one game in the Big Ten. That could be your formula for a 10-3 Michigan team. The committee no longer has the difficult decision. The committee no longer has the difficult decision of deciding between who's going to be number 4 and who's going to be 5, 6. And we could go through every year of the college football playoff, and I could make an argument every year that somebody else should have been selected. Not that I'm saying that they should have been selected, but I could make the argument. Sometimes I believed that the committee hit all 4. Other years, I questioned it heavily. 2016, 2018 come to mind. And they switch around their, doesn't seem like there's enough light here, that they switch around their tenets for selecting playoff teams. Certainly a conversation we've had many times. So sometimes the committee gets criticized for having this haphazard reasoning, and that they make up reasons. They don't make up reasons. They have a bucket. They have a list of reasons. And those have stayed consistent throughout the playoffs. Since 2014, they've stayed consistent in terms of the list of qualifications. Conference champion, strength of schedule, level of dominance in the wins, et cetera, egregious losses, all of those things. Best team, whatever that means that football people watched the games and said they're the best team, even though their record's worse than them. So those things have not changed with the committee. They are consistent in that there's a criteria that's there. So they've been criticized. I hear this all the time, that there's no criteria. There is a criteria. The issue I have with the committee is that they make their decision, then they go to the criteria and they select which criteria they want to tell you that they used for that particular selection, and they ignore the ones that don't apply. So it's a very selective criteria that they use. They don't necessarily use the criteria to make their selections, it seems. It seems as though they make their selection and then they go back to the criteria and grab the points that support their decision. D-Rock is admitting to a weak schedule this year. Again, there is a difference between there being a weak schedule for any particular team because it worked out that way, that those teams were weak that year, versus having a weak scheduling approach. I'll give you an example. I'll give you many examples. Baylor. Baylor is a weakling that refuses to play anyone. Now, in future years here, I see Utah, just a home and home with Utah. Here recently, Ole Miss is coming up on the Baylor schedule. They're starting to break out of this. But up until they played Utah, and I don't know if Utah was ranked at the time that they played them. The last 2 years, they probably were. Baylor did not play a ranked non-conference opponent from 1997 until last year, the year before. Baylor just loaded up their schedule with Sam Houston State, Texas State, any small school in the state of Texas they could find. Lamar, Rice, that was the Baylor schedule year after year after year. They don't schedule anyone. Okay. That might be changing. I believe if we pulled up Baylor's future schedules, that's slightly changing. Then we've got the opposite end of the spectrum, USC. 3 non-conference games, always play Notre Dame, always add somebody else, almost always add someone else. They are looking for tough games to play. This year, it's Notre Dame and LSU. But sometimes Notre Dame's schedule has looked difficult in the offseason and has turned out not to be as difficult, or vice versa. Virginia Tech has taken a turn for the worse. They're one of their ACC foes. Of course, Florida State had a down period from 2017 until 2 years ago. So Notre Dame takes a hit. USC down by USC standards from, say, 2018, 19, 20, 21, in that range. USC down. So Notre Dame's schedule takes a hit there. But Notre Dame intends on scheduling difficult opponents. That's the intent. Nobody can question Notre Dame's intent on scheduling. Now, how they arrived at this schedule with Army, Miami of Ohio, Northern Illinois, that's the issue I have with this schedule. So USC's there, Stanford's there as always. Then they've got that run of ACC teams. They don't have any control over that. Maybe in the negotiating process, but I mean, it just comes up with the teams that it rotates all the teams in the ACC. So that's just kind of a random, it spit out Florida State, Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Virginia. So they have no control over those 4 teams. They went out and scheduled Texas A&M on the road. They've already got USC and Florida State. So I don't know that the schedule is quite as light as you would make it out to be, but it is not one of the tougher Notre Dame schedules. I bet if you took this schedule against any other schedule in the ACC, it would be pretty tough, because those teams would not be playing USC and Texas A&M. And they'd be playing, if you take North Carolina State's schedule, for example, they're playing a difficult non-conference game, Tennessee, I believe, which is really tough for them. And then they're playing 3 James Madison, East Carolina type games. I don't have it in front of me, but that's North Carolina State's way. And then you also have the bottom, very bottom of these conferences. You can schedule a group of 5 teams that are better than the bottom of these conferences. Notre Dame didn't do that. Apparently, we'll see how good Miami of Ohio is in particular. And Army and Navy have not been on their game recently. Navy's been down for quite some time now. So yes, not a strong schedule, it appears, for Notre Dame. Tim has Notre Dame at 8-4. I guess they lose to USC, Florida State, Texas A&M, and somebody else. I would be surprised if Notre Dame goes 8-4. Then I'm going to start questioning Marcus Freeman. Oh, whoa. Thank you, Sucky. Thank you. That's kind of a quirk in the schedule, is that Notre Dame always has Stanford. And Stanford was in the Pac-12. And then they got this ACC contract. Well, Notre Dame or Stanford has moved to the ACC. Bingo. Thank you. I've been staring at Stanford in the ACC for like the last 2 weeks. I was asked to do an all ACC first, second, and third team, which required hours and hours of study of players coming back and so forth and so on. Plus, with my all-time program rankings, I'm looking at Stanford in the Pac-12, but also moving them to the ACC. So that should have been on the forefront of my brain, but I didn't even think of that in looking at the Notre Dame schedule. So yeah, Stanford's in the ACC. So that's that 5th ACC game that we were talking about. There we go. Yes. Yes. Everyone's screaming at me that Stanford's in the ACC. Hopefully, when I overlook something like that, that I'm well aware that Stanford's in the ACC. So thank you, though. All right. We've spent a lot of time on Notre Dame, and I'm sure John's very pleased with that. Good to see John here. I'm filling in for John on the Michigan show tonight. We've got a nice lineup at the Voice of College Football, as we do every Tuesday, with the Iowa show at 5:30 Eastern, Nebraska at 7, and Michigan at 8. Let's get to the headlines. So if you're joining us for the first time, whether it's live or you watch the replay, the thought here's morning show, morning headlines, pop open the newspaper back in the day. So if you've got a favorite source to go to for the morning headlines, let me know. But we've been going to our friends at ESPN. So I think we've got a lot of this goes to show you what I've been looking at. Furniture. Okay. So we've got, oh, good Lord. Is this really a headline? Does this really matter? Does anybody care? Okay. We've got a sponsor for the Arizona Bowl. It is Snoop Dogg. I have really no thoughts about Snoop Dogg. I know he's a big football fan. I know he's popping up on football shows all the time. I have no idea if he knows anything about football. I know that he coaches kids, probably his own kid playing football. I know Snoop Dogg is one of these guys that I believe had a rap career at one point. I believe that's where his fame comes from. And now he's just like a guy that's famous for being famous, it seems. So anyway, we've got Snoop Dogg getting into the college football bowl business with a historic sponsorship that recognizes his 1993 hit song and recent beverage line, Dr. Dre Gin and Juice. I'm not aware of that song. I probably might recognize it. Okay, the new Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl presented by Gin and Juice by Dre and Snoop. Good Lord, I'm not going to say all that. It's going to be the Arizona Bowl. So we've got a new bowl game. So nobody's gotten the word to Snoop Dogg that the bowl season seems to be dying, but the game previously sponsored by Barstool Sports. Yes, so the Arizona Bowl, what did they call that last year? Maybe it was the Arizona Bowl by Barstool Sports. That was probably the oddest broadcast I've ever heard in my life in a sporting event. And I'm not necessarily being critical. I'm somewhat being critical, but I'm also just saying it was just interesting. It was just, they did it their way. It was not the traditional broadcast. They're talking about betting the whole time. They're talking about betting props. They're responding to touchdowns being scored about the betting. You know, that's like the first thing on their mind concerning anything that happened in this game. And what was funny during this broadcast, I didn't watch it start to finish, but the more I watched it, the more I was intrigued by the oddball kind of, what word am I looking for? The unceremonious, there's another word in there that I'm looking for. Kind of the disrespectful tone that they took toward this broadcast. And I know that that's their way. And it was funny because they were actually reading tweets throughout the game, talking from viewers, telling them how much their broadcast sucked. So anyway, back to this. We basically have a sponsor for the Arizona Bowl. And because it's Snoop Dogg, it's going to get a lot of attention. This answers my question down below. Snoop Dogg has long been involved in football, launching the Snoop Youth Football League in 2005. often attending USC practices and games. His son, Cordell Brodus, initially signed to play wide receiver at UCLA, but ended up stepping away from the sport. I do somewhat recall that. Okay. So there we've got a new bowl. No, we don't have a new bowl. We've got a new sponsor for the Arizona Bowl. And so Snoop Dogg is basically teamed up with Barstool Sports on that. Okay. BGPO Football Funk. Man, it's been a while. What's going on, Dre? Good to see you here. Thank you so much for the 2 spot there, 199. What is up, Mark? Yeah, what is up? Well, we are just doing what we do here at the Voice of College Football. Yakov, when was the last time you watched Sports Center? The last time I watched Sports Center would have been when I actually worked there, and I can't say that I had to watch it, but when I was working, when I was on site, I was so closely connected with it. Basically, almost everybody working on Sports Center, I'm not going to say they reported to me. Some of them reported to me, but I was usually there, and many times the only one there that late at night. So basically, it was kind of, in some ways, my responsibility. So I'm not going to say that if things went wrong, I was the only one responsible. So it wasn't that way. But from an operational standpoint, yeah, I was kind of the guy there in charge of the operation late at night concerning Sports Center and anything else going on operationally. So yeah, I would either be right there in the studio or in the control room or sitting at my desk working on other things and would have Sports Center on. So that ended in 2020. And so then since then, I think that there have been a few occasions that there was a big game on, and directly after it would roll into Scott Van Pelt, and I watched a few minutes. But yeah, but I'm in a different boat than the rest of you because, again, I was there, and so I would keep tabs on it. But in terms of watching it at home, yeah, it's been a long, long time. It's been a long, long time. Those type of shows. Hang on, Keith. What's going on here, Keith? No, we give Iowa and Nebraska full hour shows, just like everybody else. Don't know what that's coming from, but Keith trying to poke a little fun at Iowa and Nebraska, maybe. But yeah, those shows have to very much be in crisis mode because there's no reason to watch those shows unless they're extremely good, but you can get your highlights anywhere. You can get the highlights that you want. They don't have to be dictated to you by anything. But sorry, it sounds like Keith's actually being serious here. Keith, check us out on the Iowa, Nebraska. All our shows go like 60 minutes. They all go Iowa 5:30 to 6:30, Nebraska 7 to 8. Boom, they're all, I'm not saying that they get timed down to the second, but they are 60-minute shows. That's the intent. All right. Next up on a really hard-hitting first news story, which is fine with me if they're not hard-hitting, because hard-hitting usually means they're complicated or it means they're serious and they're bad news, like this. So we have, my goodness, I covered Alabama football so long ago, and Hootie Ingram was the AD way back then. So he passes away at the age of 90. So rest in peace to Cecil Hootie Ingram, former Alabama football star, athletic director, died at the age of 90, had been injured in a fall in March, died at Birmingham Hospital. An athletic department spokeswoman said, citing information from the family. All SEC defensive back who led the nation with 10 interceptions as a sophomore in 1952, a school and league single season record that still stands. How about that? We will miss Hootie dearly, Alabama athletic director Greg Burns said in a post on X. He was such a wonderful man and always greeted you with a big smile. Hootie left a lasting impact on the University of Alabama as both a student athlete and administrator. Our condolences go out to his family and friends. So I'm not going to pretend that I knew Hootie Ingram. I did not know him. I've talked to him. And yes, he seemed like just a fine person. Played alongside Bart Starr, of course, one of the great quarterbacks of all time. Signed with the Philadelphia Eagles, but left and began a coaching career at Tuscaloosa area high schools. This was back in the day when guys actually had to make the decision between playing in the NFL and having a real job, and there being some financial considerations to that. Can you imagine? Head coach at Clemson. I don't recall that. And assistant coaching stops elsewhere. So he became the athletic director at Florida State from 1981 to 89, yes. So during that rise to power of Florida State football, he was the AD and then came back to run his alma mater's athletic department until his retirement in 1995. So, yeah, I should be interested to look up to see. I can't remember who the AD was right after Hootie Ingram because I was there in 1995, but don't recall. Inducted into the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame in 1991, selected as a second-team defensive back on Alabama's Team of the Century. Won the National Alumni Association's Paul W. Bryant Alumni Athlete Award, recognizing athletes whose accomplishments since leaving the university are outstanding based on character, contributions to society, professional achievement, and service. Hired Gene Stallings as well, who led the Tide to a national championship. Okay. So that's unfortunate. When we see 90 years old, of course, one thought is that he lived a long life, but still it's a sad day of sorts, depending on where you stand on eternity in regards to thoughts about celebrations and so forth. Caleb Lohner will transfer to Utah, play football for the Utes. Okay. Why does this matter? I guess it's because it's a novelty. So let me take some water here before we rip into another story. So this here is a basketball player from Baylor and BYU, Caleb Lohner, who's coming back to Utah to play football. 6'8", 235. We talked about tight end U. There is a tight end body. So here's a basketball player that says, I'm going to play football and I may contribute to the basketball team. He's a graduate transfer. That is interesting. This guy played 69 games at Baylor. Started 44 games for BYU. That's a lot of basketball. He played 113 games big-time college basketball, averaged 7 and 6 points and rebounds for BYU, 3 and 2 for Baylor his last basketball season, and then just decides, I'm going to be a graduate transfer and I'm going to play football and I may continue my basketball career. This is just, this is an interesting situation because either he believes, okay, I want to be a professional athlete and I'm never going to make it in the NBA, and I think I can make that transition, a la Antonio Gates comes to mind, of course, Tony Gonzalez. Now, those guys didn't make the transition in regards to not playing football, but they were football, basketball players at the same time. Now, with Antonio Gates, I believe that he did make a transition at one point, basketball to football, where Tony Gonzalez, I don't think ever was not a football player. Again, my memory's slightly fuzzy on the details, but they're, of course, the prime examples of great, great football players, all-time great football players who were also really good basketball players, played at Kent State and Cal on successful basketball teams. Shoot, Tony Gonzalez almost played in the Final Four. So, yeah, that's interesting. So he's going to play some tight end. So again, maybe this is just something he wants to do and have always thought, I want to play big time college football. I want to give it a shot. Or he's truly thinking, I can be a professional in this sport. I can't do it. I cannot do it as a basketball player. Back to Snoop Dogg. Sonny says Snoop is actually a great ambassador for the sport of football. He's been supporting it financially for kids for decades now. He loves the sport. Yeah, I was aware that he was involved in youth football. Absolutely. From what I know little about it, but know that I've heard him speak about it on various talk shows and videos and so forth. I've not taken the time to listen to it, but Yakov, I saw this question on X or somewhere on social media just this week. Better overall athlete, Bo Jackson or Deion Sanders? The poll that I saw, Bo Jackson was well in the lead, and the comments section was way in his favor. Now, with all due respect to who's listening to me right now, I don't necessarily take a lot from the comments of people on X and form an opinion on that. I think it's a great question. So Deion Sanders obviously stayed healthy and had a long football career. I'm trying to think when his last season. He was a rookie in the NFL in 1989. And I think he played into 2003, 4. Somebody look up Deion's years, because, of course, he primarily was a Falcon, then a 49er, then a Cowboy. And that was his prime, pardon the pun. And then he was with the Ravens and the Redskins near the tail end of his career. But he played about 14 years in the NFL. Bo Jackson played football and baseball at the same time. Deion played football and baseball at the same time. Oh, my goodness. Well, Deion definitely had a better football career, but Bo Jackson's was cut short. We were just starting to see what Bo Jackson could do. Of course, he was injured when a very strange injury. If you've ever seen I think there's a 30 for 30 on Bo Jackson, the injury, just a very odd, because it's a seamless tame, if there is such a thing, tackle, where he's just hauled down from behind and his hip displaced in some strange way that he was just never the same, could never play football again. And really was compromised on the baseball field as well, became a power hitter with an arm, and his speed was greatly diminished. So Bo Jackson was a better baseball player when he was able to play. If you pull up Bo Jackson's baseball stats, he turned in a couple really strong baseball seasons, 30 home run seasons. Was not a great average hitter. Neither was Dion, but they were 265, 270 hitters in the big leagues. Dion obviously was fast and had his speed as a major league player, where Bo Jackson, we just saw a glimpse of it, and he had the injury in the 1990 AFC playoffs. So Bo was a better baseball player. They had comparable speed. He had the power. He had the arm. Dion was a slap hitter. And so there we go. Sucky, 2004, 2005. That's about where I thought Dion's final season with the Ravens. There we go. Thank you for that. So 1989 through the 04 season, that's a 16-year NFL career. That's crazy as a defensive back. So we did not get to see Bo's best. So there's a mythical quality to Bo Jackson's career that I think maybe he gets a little bit of a push there because of that. What would have it? And that's what's great about this 30 for 30. I highly recommend this 30 for 30 on Bo Jackson, because they painted in such a way as him being kind of this mythical superhero that we just got to see a glimpse of professionally, and then tragically, he was never the same. But as a baseball player, Bo was better. As a football player, it's really tough to judge, but it's hard to argue against the guy who is possibly the best cornerback in history. So because of sheer strength and size, I'm going to say Bo Jackson was a better overall athlete than Deion Sanders, because he was more versatile. He could do more. He was a better baseball player because of his strength and size. He had a better arm playing that sport, and that's one half of the equation of the two sports, where I would say Deion fulfilled his football potential and Bo did not, but we saw enough of Bo as a football player professionally to know that he would have been really good. And he was really good. But man, that's a great call. They are the two greatest modern athletes to play multiple sports, right? Am I missing anybody? They're the two at the very top. Post Jim Thorpe, who's the quintessential everything athlete. Jim Thorpe would be the guy of all time. NFL player, well, they didn't have the NFL until 1933. Professional football player, not 1933. That was the first NFL championship game. 1919 with the NFL, correct? 1919. So anyway, yeah, we could talk about all sorts of guys that played multiple sports, but I'm talking about who succeeded. Yeah, we could make a list of guys. I love the rifleman. Chuck Connors played in the NBA and Major League Baseball. Yeah, that's those two are different. They are different. Jim Thorpe, though, that guy was like, what else was he doing? He was doing everything. Track, of course, Jackie Robinson. There's a certain example for you, of course. We appreciate Dante's Inferno here, Purgatory, 41 watching, just 14 likes. And hopefully, in addition to raising the likes, we'll put a 0 after the 41, put a 0 after the 1-4. Do that in the next couple months. As we noted at the beginning, I'm just throwing out as a goal 500 watching, 10,000 views on the videos. Although I got to admit that the videos aren't going to get much play after we're done here because there's one the next day. So it's not like the typical live stream where we put it out there and usually I have so many more people watching the record of the live stream than actually watch the live stream because it doesn't become too dated for a while. But these are every day. So if you miss it, you're probably coming back tomorrow and not going to watch that day's video. So the video views on these Wake Up College Football shows is minimal, to say the least. All right, headlines. Let's get back to the headlines. So we've got this Utah football player coming from the basketball ranks. That's interesting. We've got a former Arkansas offensive tackle committing to SMU. Unless this guy is better than I think he is, we are making way too much of the transfer portal. It's an important issue in collegiate athletics. It can't be overstated how important it is as an issue. But in terms of the players that are moving from team to team, there is so much attention being given to very marginal football players just because they're in the transfer portal. As I stated on our Texas show last night, there were players taken in this past weekend's NFL draft that the average or even avid college football fans, not the average college football fan, avid college football fans. If you're watching a college football show like you are in May, you're an average college football fan. There were players drafted that you didn't know who they were. And they were very productive players, and you probably didn't know who they were because, number one, they played a certain position. Number two, they didn't play for a marquee team. Number three, they never transferred. These guys are getting all sorts of attention as transfers, and we could name, it would be less than 10 players in the transfer portal in this spring cycle who really are impact players. Damian Martinez, the running back from Oregon State, going to Miami. Dominic Williams, the defensive tackle, leaving TCU to go to Oklahoma. Who else? Maybe Romello Height leaving USC to go to Georgia Tech. The guy had 4 sacks last year. Anybody else? The number 1 rated wide receiver in the transfer portal in the spring was Keandre Lambert-Smith, a good receiver at Penn State. He caught 53 passes last year. He's a good player. Went to Auburn, but not a game changer. Not a game changer. These guys are becoming famous being in the transfer portal as marginal players. Now, I'm not saying this about Andrew Chamblee, one of the top offensive linemen in the transfer portal. That's the key statement there, in the transfer portal. Keandre Lambert-Smith was the number 1 ranked wide receiver in the transfer portal. He wasn't even the best wide receiver on his team with Julian Fleming showing up. So anyway, Arkansas offensive tackle Andrew Chamblee is committed to SMU. He was a freshman all-SEC player. So that tells us about as much as we need to know about him. Forget his recruiting ranking. It doesn't matter now. He's on the field. He's played a freshman season. He was good. So he moves to SMU. So that's a pretty significant loss for Arkansas football. And this is shaping up to be a really horrible, awful season for Arkansas. You know, they could be horrible this year. And I've looked at their schedule. I don't remember it. And before we get to this next one, we've got our buddy Nathan Anderson coming in with this one. Mark, this time last year, Purdue had 60 scholarship players on the roster. They had to do 7-on-7 drills all spring because they didn't have enough guys. Does that mitigate last year's results? No, it does not mitigate the results. Does it explain? Does it in any way indicate that maybe this season, if they're in better shape from a scholarship standpoint, that they should have a better season? Sure, all those things. I don't think it mitigates last year's results. It's a difficult responsibility that these head coaches now have to take on, trying to juggle these rosters constantly. And there are so many loopholes in the transfer portal system that although there are these two roughly 30-day windows in December and April, it spills over because of coaching changes and a bunch of other loopholes. And of course, graduate transfers are always open to moving. That has to be reined in. I somewhat hesitate reading this one, but it'll be fun. Let's see here. What do we got? President Joe Biden honors Army with Commander-in-Chief's trophy. So this is a ritual, of course, every year, honoring the championship teams of all these sports, which this has become, I don't know where this started. I'll have to look that up. The first president I remember honoring Super Bowl champions, World Series champions, etc., was Ronald Reagan. Now, that doesn't mean it started with him, but I do remember him doing it, and maybe I'm just at the age that I was first recognizing it then. So Google search that. I may do that at some point to see, okay, when did all that start? And of course, at one point, we were just recognizing major champions. It was probably the 4 major sports, and that was it. And who knows who gets honored now. But this is certainly worth note in regards to Army winning the Commander-in-Chief's trophy, even though they weren't the best football team in the world. Now, Air Force was a better team. They finished 9-4. I don't recall the results between these schools. Did Air Force and Army, they always play. So President Biden recognized the U.S. Military Academy with the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for besting other service academies in football. Army beat Navy. Yes, I recall that. And they beat the Air Force during last year's season. Don't remember that game. Okay, they went 6-6. They had a 57-point victory over Delaware State University, one of Biden's favorite schools. And Air Force has won the trophy 21 times, compared with 16 for Navy, 10 for Army. Goes back to 1972. Of course, it went back before that. Army would dominate, but Navy, well, there you see it. Air Force with the lead, and even though they had the best football team overall during the season, Army won the 2 games. So it's a great honor in terms of the trophy itself. Okay, I'll put that one away. The longer it's there, the more I'm tempted to say something. Yes, of course, Troy. We all remember Forrest Gump meeting JFK as an Alabama All-America. He had to go to the bathroom. Did he have to pee really bad? Told the president that? Okay, what's for breakfast? Was it Nixon? It was Nixon? I thought it was Kennedy. Yeah, I thought it was Kennedy. It was Kennedy. Yeah, it wasn't. Sean Michael says Maryland linebacker to Michigan. Maryland linebacker to Michigan. Are we talking about the one who already transferred? Barham? Or is there a second one? Yes, it was Kennedy. All right, Nick. Mark, you should live stream playing NCAA College Football 25 when it releases. Really? Should I? I know nothing about those things. Live stream. So this could be a good financial move. That's what interests me, Nick. And this could be a whole lot of fun for some of you. I just don't know how we would do that because, number one, I don't have a gaming system. I have no interest in purchasing one. I don't care about that. I haven't played a video game except for playing with my little kids in 30 years. So this stuff does not interest me at all. I know it's a big deal. And if it's about a business making money, I just don't, everything I do on here is for me. I do things and do topics and so forth that I think you guys are interested in and will enjoy. So I would be interested in doing that. I just don't know how to do it. Although we've got our buddy Chris Sadler from SG1 Sports who does our simulations. So if you see that might be the one thing that you're thinking about, Nick, is that you see the game simulations on our channels. Responsibility over those, I just allow them because I know people are interested in them. So we do the game simulations. I don't do them though. I don't know when they're posted, how they're posted. I know nothing about it. I plead a Sergeant Schultz on that one. All right, today's breakfast leads me into the point that I decided yesterday or a few days ago that I was going to do my best for the next 3 weeks to not eat sugar, rid my diet of sugar, and I ate the last cookies out of the house yesterday afternoon. So it's been a full 14 or 16 hours without sugar, believe it or not. And I think I'm going to make myself, I ate the end of my cereal, I believe, as well. So if you recall last week, we were looking at cereal sugar content, and I'm trying to watch those things because I just eat way too much in the ice cream and cookies department that I might as well eat healthy other things. So anyway, this is my latest purchase of cereal. I've had this before. It's way overpriced and so forth and so on. However, it's got 0 sugar. And now that I've gotten the ice cream and the cookies out of the house, I'm going to try to make it until my daughter arrives. That's my goal. It has nothing to do with my daughter arriving in terms of my diet. It's just, it leaves me a point to get to. It's a good focus point for me. And so I believe we're going to go the fruit smoothie route. I don't have any bacon. There's no bacon in the house, so it really pains me to try to make eggs with no bacon. But I've got to eat these eggs. I've got 2 containers of eggs in there. They need to be made. If you followed me in our discussions about breakfast foods, bacon and eggs for 3 years in a row, almost every day. And now eggs do not interest me, but I got to get the protein up. So maybe My next trip to the store, I'm buying bacon, and then I'll eat the eggs. I can't bring myself to eat. I'm so used to bacon and eggs, it's hard for me to just eat eggs without bacon. So I think we're going to have some combination of cereal, and I'm going to make myself a fruit smoothie. Somebody asked me yesterday, what is in the contents of the fruit smoothie? We had some enchiladas last night. And the fruit smoothie is I opt for this to eat salads because it tastes better than that. Might as well throw the stuff that I don't like into the fruit smoothie. We've lost like 15 viewers since I started talking about food. Maybe this is not a popular topic here, but it always seemed like it in the comments section here. Nick starts his day with a sugary energy drink. Again, I've got to save my sugar content for things that I enjoy. You obviously enjoy that. All right. Sausage links. Okay, I like sausage too. I could do that. That's an idea, just to kind of change things up. I've not had sausage except in a restaurant. I don't think I've ever made sausage in my life. But we've got the fruit smoothie coming up here in a few minutes. We've got strawberries, blueberries, and some other type of fruit as well. Yes, I put lettuce in a fruit smoothie. I got to bulk it up with some fiber, some goodness, some wholesome greens. Absolutely. Okay, appreciate you being here, the Voice of College Football. Our next stop live is the 5:30 Iowa show, 5:30 Eastern, and also our all-time program ranking series. Hopefully you folks are latching on to this because we do it unlike anyone. So we will see you with our next conference, which is the ACC. All-time program rankings coming out today here at the Voice of College Football. We'll see you at 5:30 Eastern over on the Iowa channel. Good to see all of you. Have a great day.